There seems to be some magical illness that is killing our pets. In recent years, the average lifespan of a golden retriever has gone from 17 years down to 10 years. In the year 1980, cancer rates for pets were under 10%. Now it's over 25%. And what is very interesting is that when we observe these animals in the wild, they have essentially zero disease. So, what is it that's causing this magical illness with domesticated animals? Now, there are many theories as to what's causing this, one of which is environmental toxins. Some people believe that due to pollution in the air and whatnot, that it's causing all of our animals to get sick, whereas others are more inclined to think that it's due to genetic factors. There is a lot of breeding practices that goes on with dogs, where they mix different breeds, creating crossbreeds. And so people think that this crossbreeding may mess with genetics and make dogs more susceptible to disease. But neither of these are the primary factor. So let's have a look at what is actually causing this disease. There is a very essential concept for animal health known as a species appropriate diet. And what this essentially means that an animal, in order to not get sick from eating a plant, must have eaten it for an extended period of time, usually a million years or more. And if they eat something that is not a part of their species appropriate diet, they can get very sick. But why does it matter if they've eaten it for a long time? Every single plant has some toxins, whether it be vegetables, a random bush you find in your garden. Every single plant has toxins as a way of defending itself. And these toxins that these plants contain are incredibly toxic. This is why dogs can't have avocado. There's a compound called persin in it, which poisons them. Same with cocoa, same with tomatoes. These are all plants that if dogs eat, they get very sick due to these toxic compounds. But why is it that some animals seem to be able to tolerate plants? This is what is known as the evolutionary arms race, which, as I discussed, if a species eats a certain type of plant for a million years, they become equipped to break it down. How they do this is through adaptations. This is very similar to, say, Russia and the United States racing to see who can get the best weapon. The plants have these toxic compounds which get more potent due to the process of natural selection, and the animals develop adaptations to become better at defending against these toxins. A great example of this is in goats. In many grasses and many vegetables, in fact, too, there is a defense compound called tannins. Now, the thing with tannins is that they bind to proteins, and because the gut lining of many species are made from proteins, they end up binding to the gut, causing mass inflammation. So for example, if humans consume tannins, it's incredibly problematic to us. But goats, because they've consumed grasses with tannins in them for an extended period of time, they've developed an enzyme in their saliva called tannins, which is able to break down tannins before it gets into their gut. And then you have species like gorillas and cows, who have very complex digestive systems that are able to ferment fiber and turn it into short-chain fatty acids. For humans, if we eat fiber, it counts as 0 calories, as we cannot break it down. But for cows, gorillas, and many other animals, when they consume fiber, it counts as 2 calories due to this process. This fermentation of the plant also breaks down the defense compounds in it, which allows them to eat it without getting sick. What's very interesting is that even though these species can break down plants, they can only break down certain plants. And in fact, if the gorilla and the cow switched diets, they would both get incredibly sick. Another interesting example of an adaptation to break down something is humans and the LCT gene, which is short for the lactose gene. 12,000 years ago, humans started agriculture, as well as farming, which meant we started consuming dairy in large quantities. Before then, we had very little access to it. And so when we find fossils from 12,000 years ago or prior, they do not have this LCT gene. And this is further supported by the hunter-gatherer tribes that we find, who have not partaken in farming. They also do not have this LCT gene. So this has shown that over the last 12,000 years, as humans have started consuming lactose, we've developed this gene as a way to break it down. So 12,000 years ago, every human was lactose intolerant. Now, so why is it that humans only took 12,000 years to develop an adaptation, but for other species it takes millions of years? Well, the truth is it's not a perfect adaptation. In many individuals, lactose is still incredibly inflammatory and many people can't break it down. So we haven't fully adapted to consuming it. Now, if you're someone who is religious and you don't believe in evolution, then you would believe that God created these animals to be like this. God created lions, wolves, humans with a very acidic stomach so that they could break down potential pathogens on meat that has been left out for a while, which allows them to be carnivorous species. And God created cows, gorillas, goats with these adaptations so that they could break down certain plants. Whatever your worldview is, at the end of the day, a species can only eat something if it has the necessary traits to break it down. Well, without getting sick, that is. They can still eat it, but as we've seen, it doesn't end very favorably. So we know that if a species does not eat what it's designed to eat, it gets incredibly sick. So what are dogs and cats meant to eat? Well, first we can look at instincts. Wild dogs and wild cats are naturally carnivorous. When they're out in the wild, they eat other animals. They also have very acidic stomachs. Now, this is a typical trait of carnivorous species, as like I just mentioned. When you kill an animal, often it's left out for a while, and because meat is more prone to bacteria than plants are, carnivorous species have this very acidic stomach so that they can eat meat that's been left out for an extended period of time without getting sick. They also have canine teeth for not only killing the animals, but also helping to chew the meat. They have a short digestive tract, which again is a key characteristic of carnivorous animals, as they don't have to ferment and break down plants such as herbivore species. Again, this is a favorable trait in carnivorous species, as the larger the intestines, the more energy it uses, and obviously all species aim to conserve energy. They also have a lack of salivary amylase, which is an enzyme in the saliva that helps break down carbohydrates. And they also just have no adaptations for eating plants, which, as we've looked at throughout this video, when a species has no adaptations to eat plants, does not end favorably. They get incredibly sick. So what is it that we're feeding our cats and dogs? Let's have a look. Let's read through this together. Enriched wheat flour. Yeast donut concentrate, which is a combination of soy flour, salt, leavening, some chemicals, more wheat starch, soybean oil. Wait a sec, never mind. These are the ingredients to a glazed donut from Dunkin' Donut, which they feed to us. I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that over 40% of humans are getting cancer nowadays. This is what they feed dogs. Water, liver, chicken, beef. So far, very good. But then we have wheat gluten, soy flour, artificial and natural flavors. But don't worry, guys, it says on the front of the packet nice and clearly, no artificial preservatives. So, it has the artificial flavors, but no artificial preservatives, don't stress, along with a whole bunch of other garbage, probably synthetic made vitamins and minerals. Now, this right here is just a random dog food, the most popular one sold at Walmart. And to be fair to this company, this is nowhere near the worst dog food. There are dog foods out there with way worse ingredients than this. But even this, if a dog's consuming soy flour, wheat, cornstarch, because it has never consumed these things, it is going to get incredibly sick, which is what we're seeing. The foods that these dogs are fed are getting worse and worse, and as a result, their average lifespans are getting worse, and their overall energy levels are tanking. There are so many dogs and cats nowadays that are just incredibly low energy animals. I, for one, have never seen a dog hunt soy flour and cornstarch, and since it has no adaptations for these things, it is going to be incredibly toxic. Now, even in wheat alone, if we gave dogs pure wheat flour like we give to humans, they would get sick. There are defense compounds in wheat. Phytic acid, lectins, a long list of them in fact. So even if we gave dogs just wheat alone, they would get sick, let alone all these other toxic ingredients that we also add to their food. And to make matters worse, these foods do not just contain plants, but they contain hyper-processed plants. They get these plants, refine them, heat them to high temperatures, extract certain parts, use chemical solvents to extract things further. We're feeding our animals the most toxic substance they can possibly consume, and we're wondering why they're all dying. There seems to be this magical illness going around that's killing all of our animals, when really it can be explained with something so simple. We're feeding them poison. The solution to this is to give your pet what it's meant to eat, and that is meat. As I talked about earlier, dogs in the wild, when they eat only other animals, they don't get sick. By doing the same, you can prevent your dog from getting these terrible illnesses and allow it to live a long and healthy life. Seriously, as soon as you change the diet of your animal, you will notice tangible differences in its mood and energy levels. It may have an upset stomach for a week or two as it gets used to eating something different, but as soon as you put your dog back on its species-appropriate diet, you will notice a massive change. Anyways, subscribe if you want to see more videos about how humans are also being poisoned by an improper diet. See you next time.